Welcome to another online tutorial, this time again looking at grammar, but with focus on more homonyms, this time the difference between the two words practice with a C and practice with an S. Again, students sometimes don't realise that there are two versions of this spelling, and because you can't hear the difference by the human ear, it means that you have to be slightly more aware regarding grammar and how to use them correctly, particularly if you are writing something. This presentation is for users of British English only. In America, you will just use the version of practice which is the C in it. So for you guys, it's slightly easier. For people in Britain, though, to make things slightly more tricky, we do insist that the two versions, the two spellings of practice are used. So if you are a British speaker or you're doing a British qualification such as a GCSE, which is therefore marked with British standards, then you will need to keep watching. If you are an American and you're watching this in America, then this presentation won't necessarily be the most useful for you. In the UK, particularly for GCSEs, you will be aware that we have a part of the mark scheme called technical accuracy, which is all to do with making sure that you can spell, punctuate, and use grammar correctly in your writing. The examiner, even though they want to be able to give you marks, will have to take marks away if you are demonstrating particular grammar inaccuracies. And you don't want to be one of those students who has marks taken away for a small error like this, which you might be able to pick up as part of a proofreading activity. I know students every year, for example, who are 1 or 2 marks off a grade boundary, and you don't want to be that student, particularly if the grade boundary is between a grade 3 and a grade 4. So the difference between getting a GCSE or not, or at least passing the GCSE or not. So please make sure that you do if you have used these words, that you proofread. So the version of practice with a C is a noun, and that is the main difference really, apart from the spelling, is actually the grammatical function of these two words. So when we use the C in practice, we are referring to a noun. So we've got 4 examples here where practice is being used as a noun. These can refer to particular places, such as a GP practice or football practice, or they can also refer to a concept like practice makes perfect. So I suppose there it's being used as what's called an abstract noun, which are still things, but things we can't actually touch or put into a box, as I say. So practice there is also an abstract noun or a noun, to keep it slightly simpler. Learning English takes a lot of practice. So again, we have got there another noun because it's a concept. The second type of practice is with the S, and this is the verb. So as we might know already, verbs are to do with a process or a particular action. Verbs are sometimes just simply called doing words, so things that we physically or has some kind of process to do them. So all of these are to do with some kind of process. I need to practice my handwriting. We need to practice good hand washing. Driving lessons will help you practice the skills you need on the road. He practiced law after passing his bar exam. So all of these are to do with the process of doing something, the process of practicing, so to speak. So if you are in Britain and you are using British English, then it's really important that you are able to differentiate between the two types. Sometimes in sentences, although I suppose this is very uncommon and probably not something you would want to do because it's a little bit confusing to read, let alone write, is sometimes you can have sentences that have both in. And again, I'm just doing this for the purposes of this presentation. I would probably not want to write something like this in real life. She's practicing medicine at the doctor's practice. So we've got the red verbs here and the blue nouns. The bracket is around almost the noun itself almost, so the actual particular place or thing. So music practice is a thing, football practice is a thing, doctor's practice is a thing. It's places you can actually go, I suppose. But the process of going there, I suppose, or the process of doing something there is the verb. So I'm practicing penalties at football practice. The ability to actually do, so to speak, penalties is the process of doing penalties. And again, the process of playing the piano at music practice. So you can have sentences that have You can have sentences that have both, but again, I would probably not want to write something like that just because it sounds like you're repeating yourself quite quickly. So it's not necessarily very pleasing to the ear to read that kind of sentence, but you can put them both in. So in summary, again, as is always the case with grammar, for a writing course like GCSE, functional skills, A-level, IELTS, ESOL, any course or anything at all that you're writing, like a letter for an interview or cover letter or something, then it's important that you proofread to avoid small errors. It's also, I want to say, it's also sometimes a mistake to rely on computers to be able to tell the difference. Sometimes programs like Microsoft Word or Google Docs will be able to tell you, that you've got the wrong version, and it will underline it in blue, I think, if it's a grammar error. But sometimes they don't. So it's sometimes a bit of a mistake to think that technology will always help you to use the right one. Sometimes it doesn't. It's a bit oblivious to it. So therefore, make sure that you know the difference between the two spellings, particularly if you are using British English. So Americans, you're kind of off the hook for this one. The rule is, again, something you can say to yourself is, if you can put to before the word practice, or turn it into the past tense practiced, or the present tense practicing, then you need to use the verb practice with the S. She sat down to practice her sums. She is practicing her sums. She practiced her sums. So in that kind of rule, you need to use the S version. However, if you can put an A or the before it, so the indefinite or definite article, as we say, you need to use the noun with the C, practice. So she was skilled in the practice of family law. He was the practice manager at the GP surgery. So again, you can see there, that's referring to the noun, and that can be also kind of a question that you have in your head when you are proofreading. So during that proofreading process, it's really important that if you have used one of these words, that you make sure that you ask yourself, is this the process of practicing, which is the S, or is it a noun as in a place or a particular concept, in which you need the C? So that is a short presentation about the difference, and make sure that you proofread after you've written something, particularly in an exam situation. Thank you.